Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by three Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for Coffee and Conversation. The following podcast, featuring Maestro David Dworkin, was recorded prior to the U.S. seeing the corona pandemic at its height, but the content is very applicable in today's times. Thank you for tuning in.
Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, a charm to sadness, gaiety and life to everything. It is the essence of order and lends it to all that is good and just and beautiful. And that's by my friend Plato, who lived between 400 and 300 BC. Isn't that amazing? And when you examine those words, it's what we're going to be talking about today.
Welcome. Our topic today is Your Life as a Symphony, how music influences lifestyle, longevity, and quality of life. Today we welcome special guest Maestro David Dworkin, who has led orchestras across America and abroad and has performed around the world. Maestro David Dworkin is a graduate of the Juilliard School and Columbia University Teachers College. He began his career as a clarinetist, and much of his career has been devoted to working with young people. Later, he combined his lifelong passion for conducting, performing, educating, and physical fitness, and launched the award-winning Conductorcise.
Well, David, we are so thrilled to have you. I have known you for many, many years, and I can't tell you how you have enriched my life personally. As a human, you have, but you have introduced me to a whole world, being a physician and buried in medicine and education for such a long time. I'm not from a musical family. You just opened my eyes to a whole new way of thinking about music and what it can do for us. And so I'm just thrilled that you're here today to tell others about that, because you are a special person. You are indeed the maestro. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Such kind words. Thank you.
Well, they flow easily. Let's get right into it, David. Appreciation of music. I mean, we know that it can be culture specific, but that it's universal, really, and that music does affect us in a profound way. So, can you talk about the physical, the intellectual, emotional, social benefits of bringing music into our lives, no matter what our culture, no matter where we live?
I truly believe it broadens, it educates, it makes us aware of other cultures. And the example I wanted to show, I'll just play two examples of going to weddings. We all go to weddings at times. If we're fortunate to have friends of different cultures, which I always encourage. And so I'm going to play two opposite things and just feel what it does for the body and the brain. There are many ways, I guess, of actually studying cultures, but this is one that allows us to join our friends physically and socially. And so we've gone to an Irish wedding. This music, we join hands, or we don't join hands, but we're together and we start to move. We don't think of what it's doing to our bodies. You know what it's going to do, and I guess you'll talk to that. And it makes us one. And isn't it wonderful to feel one? And you forget about yours. You're together now in a global sense. And just listen to this example, which is and right away, immediately, you're going to get another feeling. we've traveled from Ireland to Greece, and you know, immediately when the music starts, something happens inside us. You know.
David, I, you know, it is so appropriate, you know, how music stirs memory. At the Zorba music, I remember being at a festival, a wine festival in Greece, and the Greek Navy was in, and I ended up doing the Greek sailor dance with a bunch of Greek sailors, and that memory came so vivid when you played that. And thank you. You know, and something else. I mean, you're talking about celebration there, but when my father died, there was a piece that I particularly wanted. It had haunted me for years, never even thinking about it as appropriate for a funeral, but Albinoni's Adagio, which is just gorgeous. And it helped us all in our mourning, and it was just superb. So,
well, you brought up memory. And of course, there are studies being made at USC, the neurologists in music and memory. I just think that we should have more music education. What that young lady said in her TED.com was that we need more music education. What I know, with almost 18 years of experience now with Conductorcise, engaging not just the aging, all health, people of health and age, from preschool right through the hundreds, the year. I've had people 104, 110 in my class, but everything else in between, the Alzheimer's disease, which we'll talk about later, Parkinson's disease that uses music, autism. I work with autistic children. Music gets to them. And there's a place right here in Monticello, New York, called the Center for Discovery. And the Center for Discovery is a place where people live, all diseases, but one that I'm familiar with. Unfortunately, we have a friend whose daughter is there, who's almost 30 years old. She is in a wheelchair. She cannot talk. She cannot walk, but she responds to music as I've been there 3 times. Now, what's happening? Something's going into that part of the brain, because we know music is the last thing that goes, and rhythm within that. Something happens where you get a smile and the eyes start to light up with these people who can't talk or walk. But you see this expression on the face. And what more could one want to give to our population that is like that?
That's marvelous.
So everything you were saying, David, supports what we've actually been reading about music education, you know, about improved cognitive function and memory and tapping into those emotional states. And we've also been learning how it helps with complex problem solving. All the things you're talking about are what we've been reading and research has supported.
Well, it's true. I am terrible in math, so that for me, but then again, Einstein, who played the violin and loved music, they said was terrible in counting in music. So, you know, but in general, from what I've seen, it does improve your ability to comprehend, and certainly the discipline of lessons. What that does teaches the brain, I guess, so many other things that are connected to life skills. And I say this to boards of education. It's not just sitting in the orchestra or band or chorus. It's everything else they're learning as well. Listening. We don't listen. Listen. How to really listen. How to get along with the fella next to you or the gal next to you, or really take some criticism from the conductor. These are all things we have to know, whatever your profession.
Maestro, you mentioned a TED Talk, and we'll provide a link to that in our show notes. And I also want to mention a YouTube video, which is called Alive Inside, and that I think has had many, many views, and it demonstrates how music can impact those living with memory loss. And I know, and I have seen that Conductorcise has been a huge success in this population. So I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yeah. I love, for many reasons, working with the Alzheimer's dementia community, but I don't label it. I really don't want to label it. And there are times when that community will share the program with independent living. You know, they'll bring everybody in. So I don't know whether that one has Alzheimer's and that one's independent. I really don't. But I've seen such responses. I was in Holland and very fortunate to be over there. One of my most favorite countries. I've been there 3 times now. And I was doing a program where there was a combined audience. And I was doing a waltz, Strauss waltz. And in the middle of it, 2 of the ladies in the front row get up and start dancing. It was wonderful dancing. And it's over. And then the people came over to me who take care of all and said, you know, these gals, they haven't moved in months. Something happens in the brain. They got up and they started to dance and they smiled. And this is what music does. What I'm saying, yes, I'm trying to learn a little bit more about the language of body and brain over these 18 years, and I've got a few words that I remembered. But basically, my program is the same. I may not talk as much to that community, but I will talk, and they will understand. And I will say, they will remember, they'll ask my name. What's your name? Before each word. David. Oh, okay. Then I'll play the word. And of course, they'll say, what's your name? And I'll have to repeat it. But I will also say to them, I'm going to play a march by John, Philip, and boom, somebody says Sousa. Where did that come from? It's from up here, that part of the brain, I guess, that is not disease. So, and singing. And there are beautiful YouTubes of people working with the Alzheimer community where they haven't spoken in months. And through coaxing and maybe a little touching, people start to sing old church tunes. I do. It's a beautiful morning from Oklahoma. Oh, what a beautiful morning. And people say, look, these people over here, they are not going to respond. We get to that chorus, and you're going to hear them shout, oh, what happened? It doesn't matter how it sounds, but they remember every single word. So, Roger, I guess you can talk to what part of the brain that happens. But that's what I'm saying. I experience these things. I see them happen. The most important thing for me to see happen is when people smile and move and just become alive.
I've seen them with you, David. You can interpret it as joyful.
Joyful.
They're truly joyful. And what about mental illness, David, Maestro? there's a book by Stephen Lopez that resulted in the movie The Soloist, Robert
Right.
Downey Jr., Jamie
Right.
Foxx.
Right.
I'm sure we all saw it and were moved by it. So, have you had any experience, or what's your view of music's ability to help those with mental illness?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, let me get to this. There is a place in Washington, D.C. called the Armed Forces Retirement Home. There are two, I believe, in the country. One is out in Oklahoma or someplace, and the other one is in D.C., and I've been into D.C. Twice. And I had an experience the first time I'm there. And here I am, and World War II and Vietnam veterans come into the room, and they wheel this one individual in, all wrapped up in a blanket, hunched over, with a cane in his hand that looks like someone who is blind would be using it. And they put him in his spot. And I talk a little bit, and I start. Stars and Stripes Forever. This guy sits up, takes his blind stick, and starts doing this as though he were a drum major. And he was dead before. He was down on his chair with his head down, couldn't speak, had whatever. I went over to him afterwards. He shook my hand, didn't say a word, looked at me. But my goodness, this is what music does. It just allows something within us to become alive. There is the place, the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function in New York, and Connie Tomeno, an unbelievable person who's director there. And she told me about all of these different parts of the brain, which I didn't know anything. I never heard the word hippocampus. And as I say, my little thing, I thought hippocampus is the University of Vermont on a Friday night, and cerebellum is a gal I went out to, had a date with in high school, Sarah, et cetera, the premotor area, the cortex. But what she did say, and this is the important part, is that when we're born, and I think this was said in one of the references, when we are born, it's like in our DNA. We all have music within us. Some use it more than others, but that's why we all respond to music in some way. And this can be vary on types of music, but to be able to use it, to have it at our disposal, and we do have it at our disposal, it's just a shame, I think, that there isn't more music education. And as one person said, start it young, start it before 7 years old if possible. But that's true of language too. If we only started our languages instead of the 7th grade or 6th grade, kindergarten or preschool, we all shake our heads and say, yes, but it doesn't get done. And that's so frustrating. And music, well, we go back to Plato. Back then, a charm to sin, it's gaiety and life to everything. The essence of order. We learn order in music. If you're a musician, you have to be able to space things out and understand rhythm.
Yeah, I read somewhere where they found in an archaeological dig, and it was like, I've forgotten what, but eons, hundreds of thousands of years in our history as humans, where this went back, and it was basically a flute. And there it was so long ago. So you're right. Music got to be deep-seated. Well, we know that what resonates in our brain is the limbic system. And that's really what we share with all mammals, by the way. So that is deep within us. and that responds to music, but also the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe, which are more recent developments and almost exclusively human. And so there's the higher human part, but there's also, as you mentioned, a very, very deep-seated relationship of music to beings, in this case mammals. I think we've all heard dogs sing and respond to music and that sort of thing. So we share it with more than just humans. It's amazing stuff. It's a universal language. I think it smashes the Tower of Babel. So we have a one language for all of us in music.
I have to tell you, I was rehearsing with a colleague of mine, just clarinet and piano, a Copland, actually, the Copland Clarinet Concerto. And we were doing it in his home. And he has a bird. He has a singing bird, and the bird was very quiet. As soon as we started to play, this bird started to sing along with us. It was amazing. It really was quite amazing. We stopped, he stopped. We started, he started.
Even more than mammals, I guess.
Yeah, it is just wonderful.
So I was just watching this music series on music and the brain, and the instructor was discussing timbre and how our hearing is linked to survival as a species. In other words, like hearing a predator. So, is music remnants of like evolved processing for survival purposes?
Well, that's a tough question. When you say for survival purposes, emotionally, when I really get down, I think it's survival when I use music to either relax me or to do the opposite. But usually it's to calm me down. I will use music that will calm me down, and there is music like this. Okay, so that was the second movement of a Georges Bizet symphony. And you talk about timbre. Well, that instrument was the oboe, and it has a quality about it that they're individuals. It's like all of us. We all have different sounds. Isn't that amazing?
It is. Excuse me, but talking about survival, the world was a tough place for most of the time. We humans were around hunter-gatherers and things, and I'm sure music was a way to deal with that. But we also now are able to discern that the immune system is strengthened by music. We've been able to link the two. So there's no question that survival was one of the positive results of music. Maybe not the first, the immediate one where you want to dance, but more long-term.
David, thank you so much again for joining us. Where can people learn more about Conductorcise?
On the website, which is www.conductorcise, spelled CONDUCTORCISE.com.
And we'll make sure to get that web link on our description of this episode as well.
Well, thank you, David. It's clear. You've communicated to us very, very clearly, and we feel it, and we're all smiling, and that music is about connection, and it is universal and deep-seated, and it enriches us and uplifts us and connects us. So we want to hear more. So we'd very much like you to come back and talk to us some more. And the folks, join us for part 2 of this podcast.
Hi, we hope this podcast is a source of inspiration. If you're ready to dive deeper into these concepts and really apply them in your life, join us over at Master Life. You'll have a personalized experience and lots of support to create your own long, bright future. mymasterlife.com. You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.